Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Dr. Lake Show. This is Dr. Paola Lake here again for another podcast today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation I'm having with a friend and also a professional that I respect very much and have known a number of years. Her name is Maria Lizak, Dr. Maria Lizak. She is co-founder and executive business director with National Best Financial Network. She's also someone that I had the pleasure of pursuing a PhD with for a number of years. We worked together alongside quite a few years in that time period. So we have a bit of a history. And so I've been really looking forward to having this chat with you, Maria Lizak. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, my friend.
Yes, such a long time.
It doesn't seem to matter, how often or seldom we're in contact. When we do touch base, it's always wonderful.
I mean, that's what friendship is, right? It's not about how often you're in contact. It's about just even from afar, I have warm thoughts, and then when we touch base, it's like we've never really had any time apart, right?
I agree. Plus, you're always doing such interesting things with your life, and now you've got a podcast, and so
yes, yeah.
It's great to speak with people who are doing things in life, who are always looking for the next challenge, the next thing they're going to take on, the next thing they're going to learn.
I see the same thing with you, Maria, I have to say. And one of the topic of today, which we are, we discussed, and I did one show on achieving goals near to the new year. And then you presented me with something because you also are a goal achiever. So today we're going to talk about 11 strategies to initiate your personal reset. I mean, even though that could be something we do at the beginning of the year, I actually think it's something we need to do every week of the year. So rather than it being a one-time thing, absolutely.
I certainly wouldn't wait. Wouldn't wait till the end of the year or the beginning of the year.
Well, yeah, it's like, okay, missed out on that goal. Well, I guess I'll have to wait till 2022.
Well, that's the easy way out.
Yeah. So, I mean, and honestly, I think that's a big topic because I do think a lot of people are constantly thinking about it and thinking about how to get to a different place in their life. They might complain about it. So this is a way to move away from focusing on what they don't want and starting to move their attention on creating what they do want. But I do want to share a story because I've always, and honestly, I've referred to you on different occasions, Maria, through the course of my practice with other colleagues, because you're one of those stories of somebody who has pursued a goal and then did an about face and went in a completely different direction. And I think it's actually really fascinating because it sort of speaks to a lot of people and how when they're working towards something in their lives, they hesitate to do it because there's a fear that it's the wrong path. And so in the end, they don't take any path. But you actually pursued the entirety of your doctorate in clinical psychology, which it wasn't an easy feat. Would you not agree? It was like a lot of years.
There were some years involved. There were some late nights.
Late nights, years involved. Sure. A lot of tests, a lot of this and that, and so I remember, you graduated, we both graduated, and then next thing I'm talking to you and you're like, you've completely went into another field. So you really didn't spend much time in the clinical psychology field before you went into the finance industry. How much time did you actually spend doing clinical psychology?
3 weeks. 3 weeks after I completed everything. Well, aside from all the time I spent studying and the practica involved. Yes. Where essentially we were working as psychologists, but as student psychologists.
Yes.
So, Yeah, well, there were other things I wanted to accomplish with my life, and starting a family was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really see it as compatible to. It's not that it couldn't be.
Yeah.
I just didn't see myself wanting to do it that way. I didn't want my kids in daycare while I'm sitting with other people trying to sort out their lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying I won't mess up my kids. I'm saying at least I was there so I could explain to them how it happened.
I
Know
think,
what I'm saying?
yeah, I think that's amazing. I mean, you've
So,
always had your priorities straight, and you always had a space, in spite of your career ambitions, to take care of yourself and to follow your spiritual values. So you never. One thing I admired is you never put that aside. So you still continued in your pursuits, but you always held that grounding in these things that were really important for you.
well, I think that's important for people to know what grounds them,
Yeah.
and to have those. Oh, you may have goals, but what are your meta goals,
Mm-hmm.
or meta values, if you
Yeah.
want? Like what's beyond all of the day-to-day stuff, the week-to-week stuff. And when I felt like the path that I would head down, in this case in psychology, would tear me away from those things, then that made it an easy decision.
Wow.
I think it's just tougher when people are not clear on what's sort of the most important to them.
Yeah.
So I ended up in financial services because a cousin of mine came to talk to me about it. And at first I thought, oh, no way. There's no way. I studied 13 years to be a psychologist. Why would I switch now? And then my husband, who was very supportive of the switch, he said, well, look, this is something you could do part-time, which it was, at least in my province. And you can build up over the years to something that's, an actual career.
Yeah.
But I think beyond that too, I just like learning. And not to say you can't keep learning in your first career.
Yeah.
But this was, something entirely new.
Yeah.
So I loved the flexibility, the freedom that financial services offered, and it was compatible with my values for sure.
I just think, honestly, I think that is really good for people to hear because, there's a certain level of cognitive flexibility that we need in our lives, which is we might have a decision, but perhaps we can switch that perspective and go in another direction altogether, right? So
agreed. I think cognitive flexibility is a huge thing. I mean, there's some degree of inflexibility that's useful when it comes to setting habits and goals.
Yeah.
But then it's the flexibility and the reevaluation and saying, okay, but is this still really what I want?
And that it's okay to do that at any time in a path and a journey that you're taking, that as much as you may feel committed to it, or sometimes we're stubborn, right? We think we have to keep at it because we made a commitment to it, but it's okay to actually stop, reflect, and redirect. Let's quote that.
That's right. That's a little sound clip right there.
Okay, so the other thing I wanted to ask you just about that before we launch into the 11 strategies that you came up with is how you valued and what you were able to take from that number of years in your education. Because so some of the things I hear people say is that, they can look at education and spending that many years as a waste of time and money. But were there things that you drew from, in spite of the fact that you didn't pursue that particular arena in your career, were there things that you were able to, that you learned from spending those years doing academia that you could bring into a completely different field, which is in the financial industry? What did you find? Is there anything you to say about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first of all, it's worth saying that I just loved learning.
Yeah.
And I was the kind of kid that was more academic than athletic. And so sitting in a classroom and reading and all the things that go along with it, I didn't mind those things. I liked those things. Mm-hmm. So for me, it wasn't just about what was the outcome going to be. Right. It was that I liked the process of getting there. Yeah. Maybe I liked the process of getting there more than I did sort of in terms of the outcome.
Yeah.
I recall, though, in my second year of university, taking a social psychology class, and that professor was phenomenal. I thought, well, there were other classes that, you're fighting not to fall asleep.
Yeah.
She was great. And then I loved the material she was presenting. And just
Right.
people are fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of general fascination with people that, I can take that with me into my new career.
Absolutely.
The advisors that I train, the clients that I sit with,
Yeah.
even the discussions around, what are their goals and dreams?
Yeah.
And then how can we help accomplish them?
And do you think that the process, even of being at university, in some ways, because you went right there and launched into the financial industry, gave you sort of a venue to, even build confidence in achieving goals, setting goals,
Well, that's a good point, because that's never something that I've questioned about myself.
Yeah.
And I can see other people starting into new ventures and spending more time questioning themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
About, whether they can. So, for sure, you kind of, hey, yeah, even if I didn't stay in that field, knowing that I pursued it right to the end.
Yes.
Now, it wasn't the fastest that it could have been done.
Yeah.
But it was 13 years of, what would you say, 13 years of discipline in terms of every day getting up. What's my goal for today? How does what I do today relate to the end goal, to the thing that I'm shooting for?
Yeah.
And so that is easily transferable into anything else that you do, and certainly
absolutely transferable.
What I'm doing
and
now.
So that's, I just think that's a great story. I remember hearing a story. It was of a man who trained to become a medical physician, a doctor, and he ended up switching his career into playing guitar, being a country singer.
Wow.
So I'm like, we can do that. We can switch paths, and we don't have to be so rigid with that. But, going back to the topic of today, which I think that's just such a great story, so I really wanted to talk about that. One of the things you came up with was these 11 strategies. I'm just curious how you came up with them. What kind of insights drew you to these conclusions of how we come up with these 11 strategies?
Well, probably some academic experience, the psychological training, the things that I do on the financial side, and having lived a little bit of life. I say, yeah, these are some of the basics. I just made sure that there were 11, because a lot of lists are top 10 lists, and I thought, with me you get one extra. So
right.
we just make sure there were 11. But it's sort of describing a process, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know that any of them are new,
right.
But I'll tell you what, it was very helpful for me coming to the end of last year to be able to organize my thoughts and say, okay, so resetting, because I want a personal reset.
Yeah.
What's the process I need to go through? Right. Let's get clear on the longer term dream, the vision, the plan, and then the annual goal.
And so the resetting can happen for any of us, and even if we already have accomplished goals. It's not a reset for just beginners. This is a reset for all of us. I think we always have to do a reset and a reevaluation of goals. It's very much for the very reason as we talked about just a few minutes ago around even a career. You might need to reset and relook at it. So this is something important that we should do, and that was your number one. Wondering if you could talk about the first strategy.
Right. So actually, a colleague of mine, Randy McCord, has written a book that may help. And the LinkedIn article that I shared with you kind of referenced that. But the book is The 8-Step Dream Business Plan. Achieve Your Dream Life and Business. So this is his take, or I'll say our take. I had some input into the book as well, into what that might look like. And it does start with some of those longer term things. I'm going to say, though, I don't want to say that I am some sort of poster child for this. There are some people that do a great job of this.
Right.
I sometimes struggle.
Right.
What would it look like 10 years from now? And what would my dream be like? And I was actually listening back to one of the podcasts you did a few weeks ago, talking about some goal setting and I guess the difficulty people might have, whether they think they can or can't do it,
right?
Or also a big one, because in my business there's lots of motivational sessions we can go to, and being really clear which things are important to me versus which things I think should be important to me based on listening to other people. Right. So that's important to separate.
Should versus wants, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. And what do you really want? And you mentioned, some people that said they wanted something, but when they dug a little deeper or, unpacked it a bit more, realized, actually, no, that's not really, that's what I think I should be doing, but it's not exactly what I want to do. That's, I think, part of the process of reevaluating, coming back to it and go, is this still really where I want to head?
So it's really a process of reflection and getting clear. And I think some of the people I've talked to in my practice as well, sometimes they struggle. That is really half the challenge, is the knowing or the getting clear, because I do think that having a sense of where you want to go is important. When we're stuck in that phase of not knowing, it's hard to forge forward on anything. So could you actually say what that first step is? I'd like to unpack that a little bit.
Sure. Well, I called it writing down what you want.
Right.
But when I was reflecting on it, I thought, it's for me not even so much writing it down. The most effective thing for me has been to define pictures.
Yes.
That represent.
Yes.
Sort of a feeling.
Yes.
Or
I love that you said that. I love that you said that. Well, it's funny. Yeah, because when some of my work with Dr. Lee Poulos, who has been the head of the Hypnosis Society in BC, and he would always quote and say that really images are the language of the subconscious mind. They reach in us at a level that words may not do. I mean, there's something to be said for vision boards. Those who might have heard of vision boards, they are boards where you actually construct or collect images or create images that represent a vision that you have. I think it sinks in at another level when you hang on to an image or a vision. I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
I've got, in preparation for today's interview, I pulled my goal board. I've got it set down in front of me here. And there are some lists on it. And my eyes don't care about that.
Yeah, they just
we'll talk about it, but morning routine, work startup routine, work shutdown routine, evening routine.
Yes.
Like, yeah. Ooh, let me look at those nice pictures.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there I am. I am fit, healthy, and energetic.
Yeah.
I eat well. Oh, yeah, I love that picture of herbs.
Yeah, she looks so happy and comfortable, and it's like, and it kind of it touches something. I also think it sticks in the brain. I can conjure up an image of a vision, so I could have a vision of myself, let's say having a certain degree of peace of mind and calm and tranquil. I could see that in a picture form. And even the image of it itself can give me a feeling of that and sort of enhance that drive for this vision. So what I find interesting is I see you as someone who has been always very goal driven, but even with that, it's something you still continually work on. It's not like you just pack your bags and say, okay, I'm already an expert at this. It really shows how you keep refueling that that process, right?
I think it's because the process for me is more fun than the end.
Mm-hmm.
And while there may be other explanations for why I didn't continue in psychology, and that could also be part of the picture,
Right.
I think part of it was, oh, well, it sort of felt like that was the end of that striving. So what's the next thing I could strive for? Again, not to say that there isn't. You continued on to strive for a lot of things in the same field.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the fact that I love that process.
Yes.
That I keep coming back to that.
Yeah. So
if I sort of
absolutely. I'm glad that it shows you that, and I actually think it's an exciting process. One thing I find is if you're feeling stuck in the rut and, you're in this complaining kind of state about the way things are, and you sit down with someone and say, well, how would you like it to be different? And you spend a certain amount of time really unpacking, this is what would make me feel good. And this is what that energetically, you already feel different by the end of that kind of conversation, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Complaining can be, well, okay, let me tell this little story. Earlier on in my financial services career, I recall my spouse being upset that I hadn't accomplished more.
Right.
And at first I was very kind of reactive to that, like,
how dare you?
Why would you? Yeah, how dare you? And then I got to thinking, but he wouldn't be upset with me if he didn't think I was capable of more. You think about with kids, if you've got a child that has some limitations,
right,
to a certain extent, you may need to accept that. This is something that they may never be great at, and let's focus on what they could be great at. So I kind of was able to turn some of those negatives or some of those complaints into motivation, because you go, well, yeah, they wouldn't be upset with me if they thought I couldn't do it. So let's get back to figuring out how I can do it.
I can do more. So you took that as I can do more. He must be right. I can do more. Yes.
Plus I, there's some little things you got to kind of repeat to yourself, right?
Yeah.
So some people have inspired me by telling me you can do it.
Right.
And other people have inspired me by saying, you can't do it. You'll never do that. And you go, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I'm going to send them all flowers. The ones who said I could and the ones who said I couldn't, I'm just going to send them all flowers.
They all served a purpose in your
yes.
in your venture, yeah. So one of them is 10 years. Now, for some people, 10 years could be like, holy cow, that's far away. I can't even think about what I want for breakfast. that can happen, right? So, then you have the next one. You said 5-year vision, 3-year plan. And so how do you navigate that? Like, if 10 years is a bit, it could be broad for somebody. I actually internally, I have a 10-year timeline. I've operated off a 10-year timeline looking back through a good part of my life. It's never been 1 year or 5 years. For someone that's getting started in this,
it's easier if you have a bit of life experience to look back, and it really does make sense to me to look in terms of decades. I mean, in my 20s, that was all about getting my PhD in clinical psychology.
Right. That already covered 30s, that covered 10 years. You didn't even have to think about that one.
10 years, right? In my 30s, that was about having kids.
Right. 3
amazing kids. And I call it the lost decade in the sense that I don't even know where that time went.
Yeah.
I have amazing memories with the kids. But beyond that, like what happened in the world, what's going on, I don't know, that was my world, and that was my focus for a good 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay, then the kids get a little bit older and more independent. My 40s was about really focusing, launching my business and my career, my new one,
right,
in financial services. And now for my 50s, I keep envisioning myself just running around being hot.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
fit
you mean physically
and smart
hot or
and,
like physically hot? Like,
well, why not? Why not? Why not be better than I've ever been?
Why not? Why not? Yeah. Yeah. So true.
So, that it makes sense to me, 10 years looking back.
Yeah.
I think the challenge in looking forward for people will be, like, if you're really stuck, you can draw on societal expectations.
Right.
Like, if in financial services, I'm often talking to people in their 50s who are saying, 10 years from now, we want to be retired.
Yeah.
Or financially free, in the sense that if we don't want to keep doing what we're doing, we don't have to anymore. But I guess the thing I'll caution is that our society can be pretty focused, or kind of put us in boxes too.
So true.
And so, I mean, I know people that started, she started when she was 55 running, and she worked her way up to running marathons. By the time she's 65, she's still running. She loves it. Yeah. And now she's winning marathons.
Wow.
I mean, partly because there aren't as many people her age that keep running marathons. Of course. But also she got better and better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we do want to be cautious about what society thinks we should be doing at a certain age.
Yeah, don't box yourself. And that's one of the things I love looking at exceptions, because exceptions are sort of a window into possibilities, right? So we have this nice normal curve that we base everything on, but the truth is there's people that go beyond what those boundaries have been, and I think they are maybe the sources of our inspiration often, that push us beyond what we have boxed ourselves into. Yes.
Yeah, my favorite people, my favorite clients are the ones who have remade themselves, who have, let me just say, I don't like the word retirement.
Yeah.
Who wants to retire, as in, if you look at the synonyms for that, that's all about moving backwards, retreating, etc. Okay. I'd rather talk about advancement and how people would like to advance in their lives. And it may be a new career. It may be a new focus. It may be a new focus on family or hobbies or travel for some, although that's somewhat limited at the moment.
Yes. Yeah.
Or could be a new career.
Yeah.
Could be lots of new things.
Yeah.
And that excitement, in fact, the clients I see doing the best are the ones who already have those things in mind, the things they want to advance toward.
Yes. And just to add another comment about the longer vision, the value I find in that is I think there's certain things that we know we can want, and we don't have to always have everything absolutely precise. Most of us would want to be healthy and vibrant and feeling alive. And we can still, the nice thing about when we create a longer term sort of viewpoint is it kind of goes into the big picture rather than the small things. If I make a goal for 3 months, it may not actually be contributing to the big picture of what I want. I don't know if I'm making sense. So I might want to get a certification for something, but that might not necessarily be in line with a larger scope vision. So I do think it is good, at least, to find someone to be able to talk about that stuff with and figure out what a big picture is for you. But in the absence of being able to do a longer term vision like that, would you recommend that people can start even with a year plan as just to get themselves used to the process of setting a vision?
Right. If you're not used to that process, maybe find some images that kind of resonate with you, let's say emotionally.
Yeah.
Where you just feel good looking at that, as in that could be me in the future.
Yeah.
And then set that aside. And then the real key is like the very next step you'll take.
Okay.
Just the very next step.
Okay. Are we going to go to the next step?
What's
the next step?
Well, so really it comes down to, like in this 8-step dream business plan, we worked it back to what's your daily task list, or you could say what's what are your habits?
Okay.
If it's true that 90% of our day is things we do unconsciously, sort of moving from habit to habit,
yes,
then it's really important to get those habits right and make sure they're aligned with where we want to aim ourselves.
so you're
So it
just
really comes
doing an
down to,
evaluation of what your daily patterns are and to see if they are in alignment with the vision that you've created.
agreed.
Okay.
So again, if the long-term vision seems too hard, that's okay. Just come up with like a picture that you can hold in your mind or put on your vision board, and then work it all the way back to, all right, well, what's one concrete thing that I could do today that moves towards that? So my goal has never been to run a marathon, but I know you had a guest who who does that regularly.
Yes.
Well, how about I go and find some good walking shoes and put them beside the door?
Okay.
So when I walk past the door tomorrow, even though it hasn't been my habit to go for a walk, I look at the shoes and they remind me, bing, yeah, I said I wanted to do that.
Okay.
Right? So it's working it all the way back to habits. And there are some great habit apps out there as well. There's actually a ton of
that's
them.
good to know.
Just
wonderful. I didn't know that. But I'm
Google
sure there's
search.
there's an app now for a lot of things.
There's an app for everything.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And they'll poke you, they'll prod you, if you let them, they will send you notifications like, hey, time to do that thing you said you wanted to do.
Okay. So get some kind of support in that. So we've covered, that's number 3, which is reflect on which habits serve your goals and which don't. Right.
Yeah, they're all sort of tied together because number 2 was audit your habits.
Right.
So what habits do you have? And then once you've kind of maybe written it down or taken a look at your sort of what's your typical day like, now you're going through that list and going, well, which ones still serve me?
Okay.
Which ones don't?
Okay.
So you're taking some of those off the list.
Right.
Then strategy number 4, you want to reinforce the good ones.
Okay.
So the ones you decide to keep that you think would get you there.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's interesting to note some of the research that's been done on this, and I wouldn't presume to dive into the details, but just the fact that we anticipate a reward,
right,
even if the reward is completion, like being able to check something off on a list,
right,
it creates a little dopamine spike in our brains.
Okay.
It's one of the things that's built into all the games that are popular, achieving a level, grabbing the coins, something pops up on the screen, all of those things. So if there's any way that you can sort of gamify your life or make it very concrete that you were able to complete something, even those small little habits or tasks, and later on down the road in one of the other strategies, we talk about how technology can help with that. Just know that when you do accomplish those good habits, taking a moment to acknowledge that you did reinforces that that loop in your brain that's it's giving you a little dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Especially if you'll take time to acknowledge it. So it's not just the doing of it, but knowing that you're going to accomplish it. And I think you referenced this in one of your other podcasts, actually. Talk about, well, yes, there are the big things you want to accomplish 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. That's too long to wait for a dopamine hit.
You're so right. You're absolutely right. And I think that is why if you can't give yourself certain rewards along the way, it's a bit demoralizing if your only time for celebration is after 10 years.
Exactly. So, don't underestimate. Sometimes we think, celebration means after I work really hard, I'm going to take a trip.
Right.
Okay. But if that is a year out,
right.
I mean, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But again, even that is too long. We need a whole series of these little dopamine hits during the day. Hey, I did another thing. Hey, I did another thing. So whether it's high-fiving somebody around you or checking something off at the end of the day and hanging on to that list.
Yeah.
My mom used to get herself, when we were small, there was lots to do. with 5 small kids and the farm they were running. And she used to make herself these really long to-do lists, which was a great way to get organized. But when the list was done, she would throw it out. And then a new to-do list would stare her in the face. And she found it kind of demoralizing because it was all the stuff that she hadn't done yet staring her in the face.
Yeah.
The way she turned that around was to start to hang on to the completed list.
To track it.
So she could say,
there's right now.
Look at all the things I have done.
We also have
that's a long list.
We have some great journals that are now available. You can buy them on Amazon. One, and there's variations of this. I think you need to look what's specific for your goals, but called the Productivity Journal. That was Maeve O'Byrne coach had shown me this particular journal. What I like about it is at the end of every week, it has a review. It has the week in review, and then it has a section that says, what were your wins? And I really like the way they phrased it. These are your wins. And so every week you give yourself credit for those wins. You still might look at the things that didn't go as well, but you definitely bring a highlight to the things that you actually did well.
That is super important.
Yeah.
And that's giving yourself, again, that reward for things that did get accomplished.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Number 5,
replacing bad habits with better ones.
Okay.
So there's a lot of literature on this. You may know it far better than I do, but it's not enough to just say, I don't want to do this anymore. And so the classic one might be smoking, right? Okay, I don't want to smoke anymore. Well, how will you fill your time? Because I'll tell you what, smokers get a lot more fresh air than the rest of us. So once you pop outside for a quick smoke, there they are. They're breathing the fresh air too.
And smoking also releases dopamine in the brain. So if you actually look at the physiological component of it, it does release dopamine. So then you want to.
So how will you get that dopamine hit otherwise? What will you do instead? What function did whatever habit you want to get rid of? What function did the role did that play in your life? And what can you substitute instead? Well,
for example, if we use smoking, a lot of people fear that they're going to gain weight when they smoke. And one of the things of interest is that actually eating food releases dopamine. And so really that's one of the reasons that you might quit the one and then you move into smoking. You move into eating. And that might not be what people want. So they might have to think, what other dopamine releasing activity? Exercise releases dopamine. Being physically active. So there can be other things that you learn to replace to think that gives you maybe not the precisely same effect, but absolutely, yes, I like it. Mm-hmm.
So somebody who's into exercise, what a great feeling that gives you.
Yeah, definitely.
If we're talking to somebody who has not yet experienced that to a great extent, sometimes I'm concerned that calling it exercise may not be very motivational. So I prefer the term movement.
Dopamine enhancing movement. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, there we go.
And maybe that's dancing.
It could be dancing.
Maybe that's that could be dancing.
Oh, it could be I'm going to go get my dopamine hit and I'm going to go hiking. I'm going to climb up that mountain and plant a tree when I get to the top.
Absolutely. Yeah. I set a goal to do for my 50th birthday to do 50 hikes, and I'm at 45, I think. So I got 5 more to go.
Okay.
And I don't intend to stop because for me, hiking doesn't take a high level of fitness.
Yeah.
Obviously, the more fit you are, the further you can go, the higher you can go. But you can find adventure, and for me, that's a big part of it. And I take my camera with me. Well, my phone is my camera, but what am I going to see just around the corner that's going to delight my senses?
Right. Okay.
Some sort of little surprise.
Perfect.
Yesterday we were out on a hike and we saw 2 squirrels fighting over some nuts.
Now that was a dopamine lift.
Yes, it was.
Well, that would be an exciting. Yeah, absolutely. And so what happens is you're not looking at giving one thing up as much of a sacrifice. It actually creates a space where you might actually really be looking forward by in looking at these new goals, it triggers something more motivational inside when we're looking at, hey, how can I get the same effect? What other things can I do? I think that's a really, really important point there. Where are we at now? We're number 6?
Strategy number 6.
Yes.
I like this one. If we're trying to, pair new habits with existing habits.
Okay.
The picture I used for that one was a guy brushing his teeth. So say you've determined that you want to take some sort of supplement. Pairing that with something you're already doing.
Okay.
Whether it's in the form of a little sticky note. So, hey, while I'm brushing my teeth, I'm going to see that note and it's going to remind me. Or you keep the little supplement bottles nearby.
Okay.
Or they're in your coffee cupboard now because you go for coffee every morning. So when you open the cupboard, you're going to see the coffee and the supplements, whatever it is. But that's the idea.
Yeah.
That you're pairing one habit with something else you already do, and then you start stacking them up. That
Wonderful.
way. That leads to the next one, strategy number 7, which is kind of an extension of that. Now you can start grouping habits into routines, also sometimes called rituals.
Right.
And that's what I referenced a little earlier, talking about having a morning ritual. And so when you're doing a habit audit, well, what is my habit? What do I do first thing in the morning? And then what's the next thing I tend to do? And the next thing after that.
Okay.
And for me, actually, I've noticed that no 2 mornings, when I did my last audit, no 2 mornings are really the same.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that would explain why I'm not always getting in the habits that I say I want to.
Right.
So kind of formalizing it or grouping them together and going, okay, well, here's my morning ritual. And I'm using an app right now to kind of prompt me or remind me. Hey,
what app are you using?
Checklist.
Just in case someone's listening there, I want to
I've tried
access.
a couple of different ones.
Okay.
I'm liking the one right now called Fabulous.
Okay.
They've got little sort of coaching tips in there, stories. If you say you want to take some time to meditate, they've got little sort of pre-done meditations.
Okay.
That you can. But basically, you build your habit list.
Right.
And they group them into these routines, as they call them.
Lovely. I like it.
So I like it. They start very basically. Could you do one thing? Could you? And they make it just so simple. At least you fill in who you are, male, female, I think your age, and then you choose from some of their options to say, well, what do you want your focus to be? So for some people, it could be losing weight, but for other people, it might be just feeling better or specific goals. You get a choice. So then they will target the whole program towards what you said you want to do. And,
perfect.
And I get my little dopamine hit as I go and I check off. Yep, I did that. I did that. I did that. Oh, shoot. I said this was going to be part of my routine and I haven't done that yet.
It's a way to keep it simple. In some ways, maybe there's a form of accountability with something like that, because I know that's what you have as number 8 is finding an accountability partner.
Number 8, find an accountability partner. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so for some people, that is, a real live person who's going to call them up or stop by the front door or,
there is something
is expecting you.
100%. Yeah. And to be said about that, because I've never considered myself someone having problems per se achieving goals, but along the way I have practiced, and I started this at a young age, but finding accountability partners. Sometimes it might be just hiring a coach. There's something about when you make that statement and verbalize it to somebody that you're going to be communicating with them again, that kind of gives you that extra edge on wanting to make sure you have something to show when you talk to that accountability partner. I just find that a really important one. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And for me in business, it's about working with some of my business partners. So we'll take some of the projects that we want to do that we believe will move our businesses forward, that will allow us to offer more to our clients, and we'll work on them together.
Yeah.
Because some of those things are longer term projects and you go, well, I'm a little full up today. Oh, right. But I did schedule time at 3 p.m. to have that meeting with my colleague.
Yeah.
And I want to have something to show them
yeah.
as in terms of, we've accomplished something this week. So booking those times and doing it with
can
somebody.
Be a friend. It could be a friend. I mean, you could say, hey, let's meet, every week and let's have a chat and see how we progress. But I think what's important is it does work better when you're with someone who is also has some skill at achieving goals, because I think if you're both struggling with the same issue and your friends, it's much easier to say, well, hey, we didn't do anything. Let's go for our donut today and forget the goals. I mean, so you want to find.
Well, yes, be very conscious who you pick to be that accountability partner, and you could have multiple accountability partners for different goals.
Yeah.
Right, because maybe the person you pick to accomplish something in business related is different than the person you set a goal for a creative endeavor.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to learn to play the piano.
Yes.
Right? Did you say you're learning?
Oh yeah. I'm so impressed with myself.
That's awesome. And so that's what I'm saying. The person you go running with might not be the same person you're learning to play the piano with. Might not be the same person you are taking art lessons with, etc.
Well, but here's the other end of it, because as far as achieving goals, when you have really worked this into a system that you practice and you do on a regular basis, I found that now I have this whole accountability voice in my own head as well. I do like the external accountability, and I like that. But one thing I can say is I think that when these practices that you're talking about today, when they become part of your habit over time, it's easier to be accountable to yourself. So I certainly know for piano that would be one of them. In my head, I knew, okay, I want to make sure at least start with 15 minutes a day. It doesn't really matter. 15 can turn into an hour, but that's my accountability to myself. It's become something that it was a skill for me that was born out of many years of doing it. So yes, sometimes we need to turn outside. The refreshing thing is when you get better at it, you can start to also use yourself as that.
That's actually a really good point. I think that would apply to me for sure, because I've noticed I tend not to like to bring other people into it.
Right.
Partly because, are we on the same page?
Yeah.
Will they be the one to encourage me or subtly discourage me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you got to be so careful who you choose. So sometimes we're our own best supporters once we've developed that habit. The other thing too, here's a couple interesting points that I found in kind of putting this together. You've maybe heard the saying that we are, well, if we're going to talk about income, our income is often the average of the 5 people that we're closest to or that we spend the most time with.
Yeah.
And that could be true of other things too, not just income, but like, our habits, our thoughts, etc. Well, it turns out it goes way, way beyond that. So it's also the people that they know and the people that they know beyond that. Wow. So even if they're not the people that we spend a lot of time with,
right,
but the people that we spend a lot of time with spend time with other people, what's their influence? And so they were actually able to measure that.
Wow, that's a lot of tracking.
But let me turn that into, that could be sort of frightening, right?
We have to interview who they're friends with, who our friends are friends with, and we'll go from there.
That's right.
But we do as humans influence each other. And I think that is a really important point is, be mindful that it's, we can embrace and love everyone that we have around us. It's not about not appreciating what someone brings to our lives. But if you're working towards a particular goal, you might want to consider what kind of influences they could be for you, right, as far as moving forward. And if fitness is not in their realm even, and they've really not moved in that direction and they don't understand the value of it, I might not turn to that person for my fitness goals.
Well, here's where strategy number 9 can come into play.
Yeah.
Using technology to help. Never before, I would suggest, in the history of humankind, have we had access to the kinds of technology that we do now.
True.
And we know we're not done with that.
Oh, no.
So the ability to reach out, like to find your tribe, so to speak, or to find the people that have similar goals to you.
Yeah.
So, if it's not the people you directly live with at the moment, I mean, you might be the catalyst for their change.
Yeah. Yeah.
But considering the multiple platforms that are out there that would allow you to connect with people who, like, you can choose who you spend time with. Podcasts, the explosion of podcasts in the last number of years.
Yeah.
Who's in your ear while you're out going for a walk or a run?
Yeah.
Is it Dr. Paola Lake?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the amazing guests she brings on, and the thoughts that she's sharing?
Yeah.
Is it like whatever skill you want to learn, whatever habits you want to create, you can pretty much find somebody out there in the world who's talking about that, who's demonstrating it.
Huge.
And ways to reach out to those people.
So let's really expand that network. Hopefully we're getting more comfortable with technology, and I absolutely agree. It's lots out there. Just tap into that one one piece of resource that's in alignment with what you're moving towards. I think that would be an amazing assistance in achieving personal goals. Yes.
And then you want to track those. Strategy number 10, tracking your progress, which kind of relates to the other ones, right? If you're using some sort of app to track your habits, that you're going to build into routines that are going to take you towards your goals.
Yeah.
Or whether it's a spreadsheet, sometimes just going back to pen and paper.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there are studies on this out there too. The effect of things that we type may not be the same as the effect on us of actually writing things out.
Well, Well, recently I even ran into that, some research that was done that there's more, and I actually personally, I have a few different books. I have both journaling for achieving, for my weekly goals and moving towards something, but I also have just a book where it's a journaling just to get those words out. I find them more impactful than if I type them, actually. Yeah. Yep. And tracking your progress, if I can add something to that. And I think, tracking your progress doesn't mean you beat yourself up when you're not achieving something. One of the things I like about tracking progress is you look at it more than that as an opportunity to evaluate what's working, what's not working. If something's not working, can you revise the way you're approaching it to make it more workable? So it's not about any kind of critical process where you're being evaluated. It's really trying to see where the holes might be and fixing those holes, and then trying a new strategy. So as Einstein says, definition of insanity, you keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. If it's not working, then this is the time to go, okay, what am I not thinking about that can facilitate me to move forward? And I think those can happen on a weekly basis, especially if we have an accountability partner, someone to say, hey, what worked, what didn't? Okay, how can we fix this, right?
Absolutely. And that brings us kind of full circle to what I'm calling strategy number 11, regularly reviewing and revising.
Yeah.
Your goals, your habits.
Yes.
So I would suggest at the very minimum a quarterly audit. But you want to set some annual goals. It's just that annually is too long. For me, when I do my income tax, then I'm auditing, okay, my sources of income and where did they come from. But once a year is too long, and we talked about that.
Oh, I totally agree. I agree. And that's why I like that these can be implemented at any time. And I also think that, when we're starting something new, in the very beginning, you might want it to be more weekly. And then as you adopt these new habits, you can start to stretch it.
Absolutely. And you asked me about what I'm using right now for a habit app. We'll see how it goes. But even within the week, at sort of a weekly review, I looked at at the first list I made, and I said, no, you know what? I changed my mind. I don't want to do that thing every day. It may be a very good thing to do, but I don't want to do that thing every day.
Yeah.
I can see it's not working. It's the thing that when it comes up on my little checklist, I resist doing.
Yeah.
So It's okay. Because remember, I want to build up my habits heading in a certain direction, and I want to remove any roadblocks. So that's part of the importance of revising. You go, either it doesn't actually, this thing is not, I see it's not helping me meet my goal, or for whatever reason, it's providing a bit of a roadblock, which then stops me from accomplishing the other things that I wanted to do. So I found it's incredible to actually take things off your goal list or remove some habits that you thought would be a good one. But just to kind of, I would say, pay attention to how you feel as you're going through the process. And if something is sort of a stumbling block, I'd say take it out for now. Maybe you'll come back to putting it in later. But build up the habit of doing the habits, right? Of checking things off the list, of saying, I kept my word to myself.
Yes.
I said I wanted to do this, and I did it. And if that means taking some things off the list to remove that,
I think that's really, I think that's really good advice. I think because truthfully, I think how motivated you feel internally is really important. And I think that if we're not keeping that up, if we keep not succeeding at a particular thing, we start to get discouraged. Monitor how something is making you feel. If it's really getting discouraging, if something, either you consult on the outside and see what might be why it's not happening, or you actually deliberately put a close to that.
I think that's way more powerful, actually.
I agree.
Decide to remove something from your should list.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I used to, when I was very young and as a teenager, I didn't really finish things. I would start a book and not finish it, and once I lost interest. And so then I set a goal to finish it, which of course was great. But there were times I would read a book and I'd ask myself, I really don't want to finish this book. So rather than just telling myself I'm going to finish it, it became, okay, I'm going to just shut that book and I'm going to make a decision that I do not want to finish this book. So instead of just not finishing it, because it kind of closed it. There's a concept that in our brain, when something is unfinished and we experience it as unfinished, that it keeps coming back as an internal thing that has not been accomplished.
Guilt or regret, or you kind of go, yeah, but I never did do what I said I would.
Completely. But if
I would. I was going to just say, I would recommend that people consider, if that was an issue, right? That if they weren't finishing books, and they thought that they should be,
right,
to maybe modify that and say, I pick up this book and I choose to. What I'm looking for is 1 to 3 good ideas I can implement in my life.
Yes.
Well, the moment you've found 3 ideas you can implement in your life, your goal is accomplished with regards to that book.
Yes. Yes.
So, who says you have to finish reading the whole thing?
Yeah.
If it's looking for a different perspective, a new idea, something you can implement in your life, the moment you found those 3, and then it's very freeing because you can still you can check off that goal. You just modified what the goal actually was.
Yeah.
Or clarified, to be more precise. What was the point? Why did you pick up that book to begin with? Why did you start that thing to begin with? The course, the habit you were trying to implement. And if you learn something out of it, maybe that's the goal itself, and giving yourself, what would you say, permission to close the book and congratulate yourself for being done.
Absolutely.
You didn't finish. You finished your purpose for that book. That's one example.
Yeah. I think this has been really amazing because I think sometimes it comes down to really getting clear on these specifics for achieving. I'm losing my voice here today, having a rough voice day, but I really appreciate this, Maria, because I do think we have covered a very thorough, strategic, and very much in alignment with how I've also seen you as someone very precise and very specific. This is awesome. Thank you very much. I loved it. And I'm really hoping that people can take time, listen to this, and incorporate this into their lives to help them, just achieve goals in their lives, whether they're small or big, and have some success. And I think each time we do it, even if you start on a small area and you build confidence, then it gets easier to move it into a larger area.
I agreed. I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Is starting with small things.
Yes.
We have no idea where the upper limit of our abilities individually and as a human race would be. But starting where we start, starting small.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just one of the things I'll throw in there, Dr. Jordan Peterson, clinical psychologist from the University of Toronto, he's become quite well known for telling people they should clean up their room. And you go, like, how is that even a big accomplishment? Well, sit, and he said, if you kind of look around your room, things will present themselves to you as things that you could make better.
Yeah.
And you build up that habit
of
making your world around you better.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. Start with the small things around you. Start with your daily habits.
Yep. And then we stretch from there. Things grow. It's like planting a seed, and you let that become, you build confidence and then move forward from there. And I think this has all been incredibly valuable. Thank you, Maria, because we need to share these ideas and help people with these ideas if they've been stuck in their lives. And I'm hoping this can be of help for people that might have felt stuck. So
it's been my pleasure.
Yeah.
Always good talking to you.
So you stay on the line because I'll chat with you in just a moment. But I really want to thank you, Maria. I'm hoping that we can connect again, and maybe you can share some of your wisdom, maybe on maybe help us with some financial goals even down the road.
I would love to.
Given your work. Yeah, wonderful. So stay on the line, and thank you so much. And until next time, I want to thank you all for tuning in today. Until next time, I hope you have a really good week, and all the best to you in your pursuit of personal goals. You want to achieve something. Maybe you felt like you couldn't in the past. Take some time and evaluate some of the things we've shared today, and hopefully that'll help you down the road. All the best to you, and until next time, take good care.